Hi everyone, I'm here with Bridget Yeager and Mauricia Malveaux. They are both actresses in the series Heroineburgh, which is a series that follows the adventures of superpowered women in the Steel City, Pittsburgh. I'm really excited to learn more about this series and how your involvement in this got started and a little bit about your characters. Bridget is an actress who has been in many independent films and stage productions, and she's also a member of the comedy improv group called Cellar Dwellers. She's also a big fan of the heavy metal scene in Pittsburgh.
Yeah. So, right. Exactly. I want to say I came in around 2017, I guess. The character I play is Arctica Bjorn's daughter, which is great. She is a cryogenic physicist from Iceland, which is awesome. And
it's awesome.
Yeah, and her backstory is that she is working with her partner who eventually becomes the superhero Spectrina, and they're doing an experiment in a lab. Something goes terribly wrong, and also coincides with the meteor that falls near Pittsburgh. Helps give a lot of women these superpowers. Like her power that develops is that she can create ice and like shoot ice out of her arms and stuff. I really love her character a lot because I didn't play her in the first episode. There was a different actress, and then I came in and took up the character, as it were. But the way that she starts out is she's like, well, I guess you could say she's very frigid, very icy, focused in her work, like doesn't give too many thoughts to her relationships and stuff. And it's only after she gets these ice powers and starts using them and starts to realize like, oh, hey, there is a little bit more to life than just science and just working. And she as she cools up, she also starts to warm up at the same time, because then she starts thinking like, like, I don't really pay attention to my relationships that much, especially my romantic relationships. So then another thing that gets brought into the series is she starts being like, hey, you know what? What's out there? I'm kind of interested. I really love the character right away. I love my costume. It's really cool. It's something that stands out. And yeah. So that's me in the middle. It's a white cape, and you can't see in the picture too well, but those boots are awesome. Like I feel like like such a badass when I wear those boots. I don't like them when I take them off at the end of the day because they're like the heels are like this big, but they go all the way up to my knees, and I'm just like, I never thought I'd ever get to like wear boots like these. They're so awesome.
I can't imagine having to do all this superpower stuff in those heels. That's a lot.
It's really fun. But we've had some fun with it too. Like there was an episode we filmed, and I used the ice powers, and then I was attacking somebody's hand, and then we had it so that we have some special effects like the ice shooting out, but then we also had some practical effects come in where like we put some stuff on the person's hand to make it look like there actually was some ice like gathering on their hand. So I like how we can kind of, have some nice special effects, but also have some practical effects as well.
Mauricia, you play the character of Vendetta.
Yeah, she is the Italian spirit of vengeance, and she's got Well, I'm gonna first go with like how I came into Heroineburgh to begin with. Is that I answered something on Facebook, and that's what kind of trip it was. And I just saw that the more I learned about it, the more intrigued and more interested I became about it. And at the prospect of being like a superhero, I mean, who wouldn't want that?
Yeah, exactly.
Right? The character is Vendetta. She's the Italian spirit of vengeance, and her powers are mainly, they're tied with her self-confidence. So if she believes that she can beat someone, she totally can. If someone is like, there are some, I'm not gonna spoil anything, but there are some villains that have superpowers that would disrupt that with her. So yeah, there's that aspect of it. Her backstory is that her friend was killed by a mafia guy, and so that's where the spirit of vengeance comes into play. Is that, you know, she's given these superpowers, but at the same time she also wants to seek vengeance for her friend. And yeah, I'm not going to give away anything more because, you know, people should just, you know, get the episodes because they're awesome.
Do the heroines, do they work together on the crimes and things that are happening? Also, do they get into conflicts with each other?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I mean, here, I forgot to put this up here.
Thank you.
That's me, yeah. That's me in the cat suit.
Love the red.
I know, and I just like, yeah, like it's hard not to love being in the costumes that we're given because yeah, it just makes you feel super powered and makes you feel like, and I'm just the whole concept of Heroineburgh, like, you know, this series of, you know, superpowered women, but specifically just women. I love that idea. Yeah, they definitely do get into conflicts, and they also are, you know, building alliances amongst each other, as well as the supervillains are doing that as well. So because so many women have been affected by this, and not all of them are using these powers for good. It's not just something that affects and makes you into a superhero. It can also make you a supervillain as well. You're going to see a lot of the Heroineburgh League, and they're banding together and everything to fight, but then there are also these other villains that are trying to take them down, not even just take them down, but have them discredited so that they're not seen as the heroes that they are. So yeah, there's a lot of that going on there.
And there is a bit of side switching that occurs too. Like there are some characters that initially begin as villainous, but then something happens and they at least consider or actually switch over to you know, maybe the more heroic side. But there's also some heroines who, you know, they begin as like, yeah, I want to fight crime and do good, but for whatever reason they start to get caught up in like their own power and what they can do with it, and you know, maybe they've been wronged or something before, and they're like, you know what, I'm just going to use my powers just to do whatever I want to do, and then that turns them into, you know, something a bit more sinister. So there's a couple interesting threads that go on in the show.
Oh yeah, definitely.
So how do you get the public to know more about this series? Went to Comic-Cons and appearing on live streams?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, that's one of the ways that we've been going about it. It's been, I mean, not gonna lie, it has been a bit challenging with everything going on in the world, you know, to go to any cons because so many of them have just been canceled and everything. And you can't even necessarily blame the people in charge of that, but you know, it has made things kind of difficult because we're not getting to connect with fans the same way we normally would. But yeah, we do like live streams and interviews and things like that, or like, I want to say cyber cons, you know, but yeah, we do stuff like that. And yeah, it's just, you know, keeping people aware. And it's great because it would be different if we were trying to plug something that wasn't decent quality. What we're doing is, you know, it's innately in the name, Heroineburgh. It's about Pittsburgh, it's about superheroines, but it's also got like this kind of campiness and lightness about it as well as having some really dramatic moments. It's just got like the whole gambit and everything, and I think it's something really interesting, and I think the more people are like exposed to it, the more interested they become.
And it's just fun. You know, it's just something that when you watch it, you're like, this is something that's fun for everybody who's working on it. Like you can really tell, and
definitely.
you can really tell in some of the scenes. Like every time that I get to be in an episode, I always have so much fun with it. I always like, I mean, you know, whenever you're an actor, you always try to, you know, embody the character you're portraying. But I have to admit that with Heroineburgh, I you know, I have an idea of what I want Arctica to be, but I also kind of, I go at her like full throttle whenever I'm on camera with her, and something that keeps it like fun for me is, you know, just like little things, because like Mauricia said, there is a degree of campiness in there that I think people still really people still really love in like older superhero movies that maybe they don't really see much in superhero movies today. Because superhero movies today are really great. They're very serious. They're very dramatic. People take them a bit more seriously. But there's also something fun about the more lighthearted, campy stuff. Like, for instance, you watch the old Batman movies and you laugh because you're like, oh, like, look at the nipples on Batman too. It's like silly stuff like that where it's like, yes, this is serious, but we're also not taking ourselves too seriously. And I have to admit, whenever I film an episode in between the takes, I always make a point to say at least once, time to chill out. Yeah, because that movie in particular is so dumb, but I still love it because there's just so much funny stuff in it.
It's such a heightened reality too, and whenever you're doing stuff like it's hard not to have fun, and you see that and you feel that as a fan. But yeah, it's very heightened. It's not, we're not trying for, not that there's anything wrong with like Christopher Nolan kind of stuff, but that's not what we want. That's not what we want, and I don't think the people who are fans of this show, I don't think they want that either necessarily. But it's heightened reality. It's it's up with female superheroes. It's so much fun and so great.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of creativity that the director put into this. How do you work with the director? Do you give input on the script, or are you more or less given the direction about how the story is played out?
Well, I mean, we're given a lot of leeway as far as that, but I mean, he does have a very clear vision of how he wants it to go down. And there's a reason that we fell into the roles that we did, is because what we're doing correlates with what he's trying to accomplish. So we get that, but we're not tapped on like really short leashes as far as like, it has to be exactly like this. It has to go exactly, in this, he has a vision in his head, but he's also willing to get input from us. So, and that's really great, especially as actors. You don't want to be, that works for some, I suppose. But getting to know that your input on a character helps you live in that character more, and so you're able to like bring your own little bits to it and everything. But at the end of the day, it's still his vision, if that makes any sense.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I agree with that. He has I think it helps that like everybody on the show understands what he wants to do with it, and we all like it. Mm-hmm. And I think that's part of the reason why we're all here. We see like what he's doing, and we understand what it is, and we really like that. And because of that, it helps us keep the vision in our own mind too. I agree, as like an actor, especially as an improviser, you do want to put your own spin on things. You do want to try different things too. And I always feel like I always think that there's room for that, and there's always avenues for that. But for me, it kind of helps to keep like, what is Heroineburgh? I think it helps to just always keep that in mind. And because I like it so much, like, even if say I offer maybe a slightly different take on it, I always just keep the idea of Heroineburgh in mind.
And how many episodes have you filmed?
How many have you filmed? Well, I mean, total there is like it's in 17.
Yeah.
So, okay. Yeah. So I mean, it's been going on a pretty decent stretch. We individually, you've been in more than I have, I believe.
I think I've been in 3.
Yeah. So I mean, but the character Vendetta was originally played by a different actress as well. So I have been in a few episodes, but it hasn't been. I don't think it's been nearly as many as you. I think it's been 3.
And how can you watch these episodes?
Oh, you can go to heroineburgh.com. That's probably the most direct way, especially like right now. Normally we'd be at the cons, promoting and everything and selling the merch and such. But yeah, as of right now, heroineburgh.com or our Facebook page or our Twitter account will give you information on how you can get a hold of the episodes.
Yeah, and we also release behind the scenes outtakes and trailers for like either upcoming episodes or announcing new characters on our YouTube page. It's always fun to do those too. Sometimes we also release like little videos of us at cons One of the last ones that, like, say I did at the last con that I was at, there was a stand, and they were selling. Oh my gosh, I'm trying to remember what it was called. It's a dessert that they're like, yeah, but it's called Sub-Zero, and they're like these balls that have when
Like
they
Dippin' Dots, isn't it?
yeah, it's sort of they're sort of like big Dippin' Dots. They're like almost like sweet like cheese puffs. Like they're not made of cheese, but like they like they're sweet cheese puffs. They're like this big, and they're called Sub-Zero, and they're kind of like Dippin' Dots. Like, you know how with Dippin' Dots, like you always see like kind of like that dry ice effect coming off of them. I bought some of them, and I tried to like hold them up and be like, Arctica's here at Heroineburgh, and like look at what I can do. And then I tried to like put them in my mouth and be like, look what Arctica can do. And like I could breathe ice even. So we have fun at the cons too.
Oh gosh.
And that's always.
How many heroines are there?
Oh my gosh.
Oh goodness, a lot.
I don't know. quite a few, because there's 18.
18, yeah.
18.
They're all created and invented by the director?
Here we go.
Yep.
Here we got a picture. Let me see.
Wow.
Yeah. There's even one or two people missing in that picture. But
Yeah.
There's a lot of them.
Yeah, and it's all his creation. It's all, like I said, Pittsburgh based. So each heroine kind of represents an ethnicity or a section of the city. Yeah,
That's right. I forgot about that part. Yeah.
because our little Italy, so to speak, is Bloomfield. That's where my character is centered. So she's the heroine of Bloomfield. Each of the characters that's another thing that makes this series really cool and really unique and fun, is that we're showing off each ethnic group and each section of the city, and we're giving them all their own little time to shine.
Mm-hmm.
And it's really wonderful like that, because you don't see a whole lot of, I mean, it's getting better now, but you don't necessarily see a whole lot of diversity in comic, at least in former comic book movies or television shows. You never really saw nearly as much diversity as you see with this series.
And
That's the beautiful thing about Pittsburgh too, because we have so many neighborhoods. We have like something like 94 neighborhoods or something, 90 something different unique little neighborhoods with like their own little business district. That's really cool, that kind of showing Pittsburgh's diversity here. And then also how sort of rich the characters are too, what their background is.
Mm-hmm. And it's not even just what part of the city that we're from, the fact that you get to see the different neighborhoods, even in the footage. We also have different jobs too. Well, like my character, for instance, cryogenic physicist, like a scientist, but not every heroine or every villain started out as a scientist. Some of them have regular day jobs even.
Well, like the one character, Victoria, works at a vape shop or owns a vape, and it's just like, it's little things like that just make the series so much fun and so enjoyable, because it's like, oh, by the way, and then, of course, and then the Iceland cryogenics.
Yeah.
From Iceland, it's just like, it's so much fun that way. And then in that respect too, we're also showcasing all these different subcultures within the city. You don't see them very often in something that's so light and airy, but at the same time, we're giving exposure to, like I said, we're giving exposure to every aspect of the city that we possibly can.
Mhm. Yeah, and even sometimes, like to your point with you also show the different interests of them sometimes. Because, like, for instance, I have ice powers, but there is a girl who has fire powers, and her name is Hellfira, but part of her character is that she's a metalhead. So like, there's fun ways to like not only show like how different they are in terms of where they live, what their job is, but they also like what their interests are, like who they are as a person. And then sometimes that can tie up like in really fun ways, like with Hellfira and like with me, cryogenic physicist from Iceland. Wonderful opportunity for puns all over the place.
And also, also in a practical sense as well. Obviously it makes it fun and makes it enjoyable to watch, but as an actor, it gives you a lot of meat to cook with, so to speak.
Yes.
Even though, there's like puns galore, we still have pretty rich backstories. Every single character does. And considering that there are so many of us, it's really a testament to the creator, like, the fact that we have all these rich backstories and there are so many of us and it's so tied in with the city and such.
Do you show violence at all in this? Like, what kind of age range can watch?
It's crime fighting. It's got to be. So, it's campy violence. It's not, it's not, really. We're not showcasing like, the movie Joker here. All right, this isn't happening. That would have been a little much. But it's campy, so it's like it's PG-13. It's very rarely you're gonna find a group that wouldn't enjoy this.
We don't have enough money to hire the super high-tech stunt people, or like the super elite trained stunt people for some of that stuff anyway.
Each individually though, we do make do. Like you've got your, you've got your superpower, ice superpowers and everything, and I've got my Eskrima fighting sticks and everything, and I learned. One of the ways I prepped for that, and I didn't even know I was prepping for this role, I think I was a mini majorette for like one semester of school and everything, but I learned how to twirl the that was the thing, like in Daredevil with the character Elektra, how she'd do like little tricks and things like that with
her little hand sword thingy.
Exactly.
I don't know what they're called. Size?
I think they're called size. Yeah, size. Okay, they are called size. And just doing stuff like that and everything that would so not be practical in actual combat, but that you can do just to make it, just to look cool. And that's how we kind of approach, the fighting aspect of the series.
Mm-hmm.
So, Mauricia, you actually have your own comic book.
Yeah, I do. It's here. I've got it right here. Let's see. Not too much glare. Yeah, it's called The Music Maker. We have 2 issues out, and we're working on. Oh, thank you. We have 2 issues out, and we're working on issue 3 at the moment. It's been going a lot slower because, like I said, everything going on in the world. It's been primarily over the internet. I met my illustrator, funnily enough, via DeviantArt. Yeah, I know, right? Like, so professional.
I think that's great.
but the story behind this is what was so funny is because the story in Music Maker is it's about 18 plus because we deal with like sex, drugs, rock and roll, and it's just all musically based kind of stuff. So what I did was I put on DeviantArt. I'm looking for a Aeon Flux kind of Peter Chung kind of look to it, which as you can see he completely nailed. But I also said, because of the subject matter of the story, I said it's going to be not safe for work. I got like, I posted that on DeviantArt. I got like this flood of like stuff that like inappropriate stuff, and just me sitting back on, well, definitely couldn't show that at work, that's for certain, and just like, but then amidst all that, I met Andres, who is my illustrator, and he came on board, and we just naturally clicked, and it's been fantastic ever since. It's one of the things that makes it kind of interesting and unique among comics, and I say unique, not revolutionary, but unique among comics, is the fact that you can actually listen to music that's in the pages through QR codes. So you can scan it with your phone, listen to the music that's going on in the story as you're reading the story.
Oh, that's really neat.
Oh, thank you.
I think it's really cool.
So you listen to it like with earplugs, you connect it?
No. What you do is you take your smartphone and you scan the barcode, and then it'll start playing it. It'll start playing the music off of your phone, and then you're listening to that as you're reading the story.
And you also exhibit art that you do?
Yeah, I do. Not nearly as much recently because, again, it's like, COVID. There were my summer plans, and then came COVID. I studied fine art painting in college. That's primarily what I majored in. That and playwriting. I had a minor in playwriting. Both of those combined turned out to be the best and of course my love for comics turned out to be the best training, not only for my own comics but for Heroineburgh as well, because it taught me to think visually and understand people who think visually, as well as the writing process and what a director is potentially going for, or what a writer is potentially going for within a story, and especially how do you portray that visually, both whether it be in a comic book version or, in our case, Heroineburgh.
And you both are theater artists or theater actresses.
Honestly, I've been doing it on and off since I've been about 5. And like I said, I got my minor in playwriting. So it was always there, and it was always something. I still feel weird about calling myself an actor, if that makes sense. But it is what it is. I am an actor. And I think the same, but you are actually more streamlined and more professional. And yeah, you're like a thespian is what you are.
I try to be. I try to be. I never went to school specifically for acting. It's something that I did, kind of to what you were saying. I would do plays in like middle school, plays and musicals in high school. If I got a chance to do anything in college, I was in a rendition of the Vagina Monologues in college. Yeah, and but I also did something small, like in community college. There was a criminal justice degree. My professor reached out to me and some other people saying hey, the criminal justice people need people to pretend that they're potential witnesses. We need you to be kind of belligerent witnesses to this, and they need to ask you questions. You need to stay in character. So even little stuff like that was very fun. But I never went to school specifically for that. I actually went to school for English. So I think it still helps because even though I never went specifically to be a creative writer, I still studied, read a lot of literature, wrote a lot of papers. So I do understand the writing process. So that does help when reading a script and stuff. But I just always loved it. But something that I never really tried to pursue more till I was out of college for a few years, and I found out that there was a community theater really close to me that I hadn't been aware of. And I was like, oh, okay. So then I auditioned, and I was in one play, and then I did another play, and I did another play because I've always loved acting, so I kept doing it. And I had also been going to the improv group that I'm in now. I had been to go see The Cellar Dweller since I was 18. A couple of my friends of mine were like, oh, hey, we're going to go to improv tonight. I was like, well, I didn't really know what improv was. And I was like, well, what is that? And so I always kept going, and they always had audience participation games. And so I eventually got the courage up to go and start playing some of these games. And then they always noticed me. Eventually, a few years ago, for many life reasons, people will leave improv groups. It happens, people come in, they love it, they play a lot, and then, something happens and they leave. They have lost quite a few people at that point, and they reached out to me and they said, hey, we've always really liked you. We'd really love it if you could join us. And I was just like, yes, because I always loved doing it. And I started doing that. And then eventually I got a little braver and started exploring the film scene in Pittsburgh. I'd say most of the films that I've done are little shorts, things like the 40-hour film project, which I think has been a great thing for filmmakers in Pittsburgh. It helps people to work together with lots of different people. Sometimes people stay with one group if they work really well. I like to personally try to switch things up, not because I don't like certain people, but I'm like, well, I want to know what it's like to work with more than one group.
How they do it. Exactly.
Yeah, because some groups you're like, okay, I worked really well with them, and others you're like, well, they're really talented, but our workflows just didn't click, and that's totally fine. And then that way you just meet a lot more people, and then I haven't tried to say create anything myself, but it's really helpful, to do stuff like that, because then it's like, oh, well, if I ever need if I ever needed something, I'm like, because now I know quite a few photographers. So if I need to get a new headshot, it's like, well, now I know like, 4 different people that I could reach out to and see, if I can work with them. So it's I guess it's never something that I specifically got to get an actual education on, although I have taken classes and those have been extremely helpful. It's just something that I always loved doing, and I finally got to a point where I was like, okay, I'm not afraid to pursue it anymore. So, and Heroineburgh is also helped me in that regard too.
And I heard you're an amazing baker.
Oh, irony. Gosh. Oh, irony. The girl with ice powers is a great baker.
I didn't even think of it like that, but you're right. Yeah, oh my goodness. I'll post on like my personal Facebook all the time whenever I'm baking stuff. So or cooking stuff, and I think I've had friends say to me like I don't understand like how you can like bake all this stuff all the time, and I'm strategic with it. I give it away a lot of times, or I freeze it or whatever. I'm like, I just really like baking, but I guess because I like sharing, because I'll try something and I'll get really excited and I'll share it, like, here's the recipe I did and stuff. But I think because it's something that I share a lot, people think I do it like every day.
I don't believe this.
Yeah, especially the last play that I got to do, before quarantine and everything. I spoiled the people in that play, because like once I kind of figured out, hey, you know what? There's a lot of recipes I want to try, and there's a big group of people who I'm working with all the time. I tried out 2 cookie recipes with them. I tried out like 4 different recipes on them. Wow. Two of them I hadn't made before, and like the others I was like, well, I want to make sure I'm doing it right. And especially the one day I made, they're really good. They're these cookies, like if you're familiar with what creamsicles are, like imagine like a creamsicle in cookie form, but with dried cranberries in it. Ooh. For like a little bit of a tang. And I brought them in, like, oh my God. I kept, every time I would look back to where the cookies were, like especially like the high school kids who were working, they kept going back and kept going back. And the one kid came up to me, he's like, I've already had 4, but I'm going back for another one. And I'm like, guys, you gotta leave some for everybody else.
Heroineburgh is also a comic as well.
Yes.
Yes.
Awesome.
Oh, it is gorgeous. It is beautiful inside, and it's done by a local artist. The interior pages are done by Zeus Barnett, as well as the covers were done, I want to say it was by
Jason Wright.
Yeah, there we go. Well, yeah.
Yeah, and Jason Wright, actually has worked in the comic book industry before. I know that, as I understand it, he did a lot of coloring work on the Green Lantern comics for DC.
Yeah.
And how many heroines are featured in each episode usually?
Oh, wow.
It depends on the episode.
Yeah, it varies.
Like if it's an episode that, and it really does depend, because some episodes will introduce a new superheroine or a new supervillain. So like like those people will be featured prominently throughout the episode. But it like some of the more beginning episodes are like a little bit more focused on one person. But as like the show has grown and more characters have been added, I would say like sometimes there'll be like a mix where like one character is introduced, but then plot threads from the previous episode will be brought up.
So yeah, it's roughly like 7 to 8, heroines or supervillains within an episode. And we're really getting to the point where, the origin stories were fantastic, and that was what was really solid. But we're also starting to see these plots intertwine a bit. So we're starting to see how the heroines not only are fighting evil and becoming who they are with their origins, but we're also seeing how they interact with each other and the rest of the world. So that's where I think things are going to get really, really interesting.
Yeah, something that I very much love about Heroineburgh too is that it isn't just again, like different backgrounds, different people, different jobs that they have. It's also different in how they think too. Yeah. The episode where I took over as Arctica is the 13th episode, which is the last episode of season 1, and all like, with the exception of 1 or 2 people, like most of the heroines are brought together and they're talking about how they want to go about like
The league.
forming the league, how the league is going to operate. Some people align more one way, some people align more the other way, but I really like it because like they all have the same goal, and then they start fighting with each other because it's like, well, no, this way is better. Well, no, this way is better, and so that's one of the first times where you really do see like yeah, we all want to protect the city and keep it safe, but it's like, oh, but I mean, as what happens,
I want to do it my way.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah, it's not just people at your job or like interacting with like your family members. Like everybody has this problem where you all want to do something about some problem, but then when you go into how you're actually going to do it, suddenly it's like, oh no, like we're not getting along anymore. Like it's really good. I think it's a really good showcase of showing diversity of thought.
Yeah, and just various opinions as well. There's definitely some butting of heads, and that, from my angle anyway, that makes for way more interesting visuals and way more interesting of the plot, personally.
Plus the fact that in that episode it kind of devolves into like all of the superheroines fighting with each other. Yeah. It sort of shows it. I personally kind of like it because it shows like, yeah, even adults can act like kids. You know what I mean? Like yes, we're all these grand awesome superheroes, but we can also be dumb.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for the awesome work that you're both doing.
Oh, thank you for interviewing us.
Thank you.
Oh, no problem. Thank you so much. You can check out Heroineburgh.com for all the episodes, the comic, and information, about it overall.
Yeah, there's some really good fan art on there too, and also all of the characters are listed with like who they are and like where they came from and stuff if you're interested. So
yeah, if you want to get the scoop, check out Heroineburgh.com.
Wonderful.
And of course, seeing us at the Comic Cons whenever those start to get going again. But yeah.
Well, good luck to you both.